Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the Single Parent Nation podcast. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Heaven Taylor Wynn. She is a dedicated mother to a vibrant 3-year-old, and she is a proud native of St. Petersburg, Florida. She served as a digital communication professional for a local government organization. With nearly a decade of experience in social media marketing and a strong foundation in communications, she leverages her skills to connect communities and amplify impactful messages. She also serves as a board member of a local nonprofit scholarship organization and operates her own digital marketing agency. Balancing full time work with her pursuit of an MBA at the University of Florida, Heaven exemplifies resilience and determination. She openly shares her journey of navigating career advancement while embracing the joys and challenges of motherhood. Passionate about family, community, and living a life of purpose, Heaven is committed in inspiring other single parents, proving that their circumstances do not define their potential. Hello, Heaven. How
Hi,
are you?
I'm doing so well. I'm so glad we're able to have this conversation. I know we were supposed to talk before and we had to reschedule. And I was just telling my friend, I was like, you know what? Like, how fitting, like, what happened, something with your child that we had to reschedule. I feel like that just really speaks to the moment and how critical it is that we have these conversations and talk about what
Right.
it's really like to be a single parent. So I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, which shows that we're resilient because no matter
Absolutely.
what, we're going to get it done, right?
Oh, we've got to. We've got to.
Amazing. So I'm excited and I can't wait to dive into, getting to know you and hear because you're working and
I'm
you're
ready.
also pursuing an MBA.
I am. I
I,
am.
I'm very proud of you because when I did my MBA, I was working
Oh my gosh.
two jobs and an MBA, but I got it done. You're getting it done. And if anybody's listening to this wondering, can I do it? Am I too old or is it going to be too much? No, it's not. You can get it done.
For sure. Absolutely. I agree 1000%.
So, my question to you is what has been the most challenging part of being a single parent and how did you overcome it?
Oh my gosh. The most challenging part about being a single parent is just finding time for everything. I feel like everything in a way falls on me. Although I am very fortunate, I have a lot of help. I live in my hometown, so my daughter has tons of family, sometimes too much family,
Mhm.
who wants to help me out with her or spend time with her. She's with her grandparents now. So it's just finding that time for me, for my endeavors, and finding time for her and her activities. She does gymnastics, and then finding that time for us to spend time together and then also cultivate relationships for her with other little kids and friends because she's my only child. It's
Mhm.
actually something I'm thinking about right now. We had a friend text me this morning, or my friend who has a daughter her age texted me and she's saying, "Oh, she's been asking about your daughter, Kobe." I'm sorry. And I was like, oh, I really want us to spend time with them, but like, when am I going to do that? So that's been challenging. I haven't fully overcome that specific challenge yet, but one thing I'm working towards is just using my calendar and then using my notes apps to get organized and decide like what's really important right now. Everything is not equally important all the time. And
Right.
that's a lesson that I'm forcing myself to learn. Like, you don't have to worry about doing the dishes, washing your car, taking her to school, getting dressed all in this moment. Like, what's most important? And then let's get to the next thing. So that's an ongoing lesson I'm figuring out. If you have tips for that, I would love to hear them too.
So for me, sometimes you have to like turn your head to that stack of meal and the dishes. Like yesterday when my daughter was sick, I was like, okay, I was doing the laundry. I was supposed to do this podcast. And I'm like, all right, let me attend to her.
Mhm.
And just sometimes it's almost like a budget. You have to readjust, rearrange
Absolutely.
the schedule, and just it's what's important,
For
really.
sure.
Yeah. So, what's one parenting hack or strategy that you have used to make your life easier?
I am one of those people who I just said that I struggle to find time to do everything. And part of the problem with that is I like to do things for myself, or I know that I like things done a certain way, or I just know that no one can do things the way that I can. But when it comes down to it, I gotta let people help me. And I struggle to like relinquish control or relinquish, just taking care of my own things. So we're right there. So I'm very big on if my mom wants to spend time with my daughter, or if I say, oh, I was going to take her here and she's upset about it. Okay, you can take her. I'll let her go with you. Another thing is letting people help me in terms of like meal prepping and meal planning, right? Like
Mhm.
that really figuring out what to eat stresses me out because I like to eat a certain way and my daughter is a 3-year-old. So I can't always meal prep like a healthy salad bowl. She's not going to eat that. She might, but she might not. So I have a friend who likes to do meal prep and he was like, I'll do it for you and then you could just focus on these other things, letting people help me when they offer the help. And then also not being afraid to ask and reach out for help
Right.
proactively. It's not a weakness. It's not making any lesser than we need each other. So just really leaning in and tapping into my community, especially when they offer it. That's been the biggest hack is just saying I need help.
So community. So yeah, that works and the meal prepping works. But when you meal prep, do you prep like a day or two or the week?
I will typically do like 3 to 4 days, or I will try to prep different ingredients that I could either dump it into a bowl, or I could maybe do a wrap, or like, could I do it separate? Because if it's going on day 5, I don't want to eat it by then, which is also another challenge for me because I'm like, okay, am I eating for pleasure? Am I eating for fuel? Or am I eating for like necessity? And I think it's a combination of all of those
Mhm.
things. Like food to me is a fun thing, but I recognize that you just have to eat sometimes. It's not always going to be the most enjoyable, but
Yeah,
I really cannot eat 5-day-old food. I can't do it.
me neither. I think it's just, just kind of go with the flow sometimes and just understanding it's never going to be perfect.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. How do you handle discipline and boundaries as a single parent?
I don't. That, like I said, my daughter is 3. We recently moved into our own place a few months ago, so I was staying with my mom for a little bit after I had her, and I have seen such a shift just in these few months from having Gigi around all the time and my sister versus just us two. I recognize that I'm her mom, so she's never gonna act with me the way she does when she's at school or gymnastics or with her grandparents or her godparents. But I have seen an improvement as far as like, you know what? I don't have to play into every little moment that she's upset or that she cries. Like a kid is going to cry. She's communicating a need, but if I know that I've taken care of her, her needs are met, she's just gonna have to be upset. So it's hard on me to sit there and watch her be upset sometimes, especially at bedtime. That's the boundaries piece of just saying I'm gonna sit her in there and close the door and put on some little fun music that she can go to sleep. But that's more of a me thing. It's less of a her thing. As far as with other people and like tapping into my community, I have to remind myself that there are so few things in the world that I control, and what happens when I leave her in the care of someone else is not one of those things. And I have to just decide, do I want to leave her in their care? She's safe. She's having a great time. Is she going to come back with a few little behaviors that we need to correct? Like probably because people spoil her. But at the end of the day, like what is the most important thing is that she's safe. I have the help. I'm able to get done whatever I need to get done, or I'm able to just have a break or just like a pause moment of like, okay, turning my mom brain off. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard, especially at 3, but my
Hmm.
kids are 11 and 14. Let me tell you, you have to set those boundaries and
Oh my
discipline
gosh.
early, early.
One thing right now I really want to do is take the tablet and reduce her screen time. I'm not one of those super strict like type of moms. Like I don't want to be a pushover either, but I want us to like each other. I recognize that that's out of my control. Largely, it's another person involved, but the screen time is something that's bothersome to me because I notice how her behavior and her mood changes. It's addictive. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we've got to figure out how to break this. But sometimes that discipline goes out the window. I'm like, okay, you're gonna sit here and holler, like take it. Like we don't need that. We don't need that. But that's an ongoing challenge. I suspect when she's like 4, maybe even 5, we'll get into a groove. But that's an ongoing process, I would say.
Yeah, one thing someone had said to me was Because at one point, my daughter, she was just very defiant.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, when you say something, mean it. In other words, when you say no,
Yes.
no, don't, because she keeps crying, you're just going to give it to her just to shut her up.
Don't compromise with them.
Yeah. So when you say something, mean it. So for me, what I had to do was I had Comcast at the time. I would set, like, I was able to kick them off the Wi-Fi at a certain
Mm-hmm.
time. So it would turn on like at the time they're going to school, and then like 2 hours before bedtime, I would turn it off. That's
Mm-hmm.
how I had set it. So that you could try that.
That's good. That's good. She's
Yeah.
still young, so I can just take her stuff and turn it off. I think what I have to work on with her is like teaching her how to entertain herself when she's bored. Largely, she's pretty good at that. And we just had Christmas and she has a lot of new toys that she wants to unpack and dive into. Um, but when she's had enough of something, she's all under me or she's trying to watch the screen or trying to do something. And it's like every day is not an adventure. Every day is not we're going to the museum, we're going to the park, we're going to the
Yeah.
library. That I like to take her places and show her the world and do stuff like that. But I think I'm creating a little bit of a monster. I think she thinks that's all the time. And sometimes we're just gonna chill at the house. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. What's one proud moment you've experienced with your daughter, and what made you feel like you're doing it right?
Oh, I've got like two, but I'll pick one. Um, So she is in the choir at church, and since she's been like able to make sound, she's always been kind of melodic and harmonious and musical. And so I've always thought like, oh, I've got to get her in singing. And everybody thinks their kid's gonna be a star.
Mhm.
Um, Kobe just makes a song out of anything. Don't let her get sleepy. Everything she has to say to you will become a song. And she's been singing the ABC since she was one. So I was like, I'm gonna put her in the choir. At least it can, she may not become Beyonce, but she can, be around other kids, learn teamwork, be with other adults, and do something positive. And so she recently had her second choir performance at church, and I was just so proud because she's 3 again. So I don't know how serious she is about the singing. Like she'll be singing the songs in the car. I'll put them on and try to get her to rehearse them, but I have a video and she's up there singing the words. Like she's fully in tune, doing it, excited, happy to be there, following directions when they tell her to go up and go sit back down. Like it's something so small, but it was really amazing because I felt like, okay, I identified an interest that my child had. I put her in this thing and now she's doing it successfully. And then we have people and family come and see her. I felt like I'm finally on the right track as a mom. Like, okay, we're doing this. Like she's up
Yeah.
there and she's singing. Like, this is great.
Yeah, that's awesome. You have to send me a video.
I'll send it to you. It's so cute. Now she's not a lead. She's not one of the leads, but she's in like the back. But I see her moving her mouth and she's singing the words like as they're supposed to be happening. So I think maybe when she's a little bit older, I might do like individual voice lessons just because
Yeah.
it's an interest of hers. But I felt really, really proud of that.
Yeah. You did the right thing to start, to not just to start, but to start early.
Hmm.
Yeah. So how do you balance being a nurturer, being a mom, and providing without feeling overwhelmed and stressed?
I'm always overwhelmed and stressed. I'm always anxious. I overthink everything and it ruins my day sometimes. I am not the expert in this area, but one thing that has helped me is to have people in my corner, friends mainly. None of my friends have kids, so it's to decide, do with that what you will. But I have people I can just tell everything, and they will listen if I want them to listen. They'll give me advice if I want advice, or they'll encourage me um, if I need it. I usually never ask for that, but they end up doing that and tell me I'm doing okay. I also journal quite a bit. I like to do it more regularly than I have, but I will just like write about my day. And then typically if I'm having like a really rough go with things, I'll like force myself to do some gratitude journaling. So like, what's one word to sum up my day? How do I, what was my intention for tomorrow? Why is that important to me? Or what's a good thing that happened today? I got that from my therapist like a year ago. She gave me that assignment and I didn't do it consistently then, but I find myself doing it more and more now.
Mhm.
Um, I just have to kind of get everything out of my head. I feel like a lot of my life is lived in my head because I'm with my daughter all the time when I'm not at work. So I don't have a ton of people to talk to about what's going on. So just getting the thoughts and everything in my mind out or getting it expressed is really important to me. And then once I say things aloud or start like jotting them down, I'm like, oh, this is really not as big of a deal as
Mhm.
I made it seem like or as it felt at the time. I don't know if you can tell, I'm a very like type A person, or I try to be in control of too many things. And I can't say for certain why that is, but with being a mom, especially a single mom, like you will have a plan and the guy will be like, okay, that was cute.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Yeah.
it's a lesson I'm learning.
Yeah, as a single parent, you're forced to be in control because you kind of realize nobody's coming to save me.
Absolutely not. Not
I
a single.
don't do it, it doesn't get done. So it forces you to be in control. You have a similar daily habit like me. So, but it's not always perfect,
Mhm.
right? The whole gratitude. I have gratitude. I learned this from Bob Proctor. So after gratitude, I do send love. So if something or somebody is bothering me, I send love to that person.
Oh, that's good.
The science behind that is what you send out, you get back. So if you send out good, you get back good, right? And
Mhm.
then I do manifestation. So, like, say for instance, I want something, I list it. And then I do affirmations. And then I write with my left hand. But it's not always perfect. Like you're supposed to do it every day, but it doesn't
Oh,
get
I definitely
every
don't do it
day.
every day. No, that is,
Yeah, it
I
doesn't
would
get done
love
every
to.
day. But what I substitute that with is, let's say I'm at work. Usually I eat in 10 minutes and I walk for 20. So during that 20-minute walk, that's when I do my gratitude. I'm like, thank you.
Just with yourself, like kind of
Yeah.
a, yeah, I
Yeah.
like, that's really good.
Yeah. So
The
I
thing
do.
about gratitude too is once you get in the practice, and I started to notice this, and my therapist told me this, is once you're in the practice of practicing gratitude, you start to look for things in your day, or you start having more gratitude throughout the day because you know you're going to go and chronicle it or write about it later. And that's something that I really enjoyed as well.
Yeah. You appreciate more. It's just like
For sure.
recently I went for a job interview
Oh,
and
exciting.
I was like, I really want this job. And then I had to stop myself and say, you know what? It's all about God's plan. And
Yeah.
I found out that I never got it. And I said, you know what? Come to think of it, it's not really in alignment with what I really want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not
It just
because,
sounded good at the time.
yeah, not because I'm qualified for it, not because I have the degree for it, does not mean that it's for me. And I wasn't upset. I
Yeah,
literally was upset because I said, what's for me will never pass me by.
absolutely.
Yeah. So let's dive into a nice topic. How do you balance budgets and manage your finances as a single parent?
Oh, this is so good. Okay, I'm actually quite good at this, but I've got to admit, I haven't looked at my budget or my spending closely in several months. I actually have a spreadsheet and I have everything like mapped out in there. I used to have an app, but I think they started charging for it and I'm kind of cheap and I'm not doing that. But I have my spreadsheet. I also have all of my banking apps on my phone. So like I have accounts for my daughter. I have a so I'm in Florida. I had started a 529 savings plan for her, but I decided that if she chooses to go to school outside of Florida or chooses not to go to school or whatever, I don't want to take a loss on that. So I started a Fidelity custodial account, which is like an investing account for the kid. And then I just picked a couple of like top funds. So I have money from my account going there every month. I also have a savings account for her that I started before she was born. That whenever I get gift money for her, like Christmas or birthday money, I put it in there. Or I also have some money from my paycheck going there as well. And then whenever I just have extra funds, I'll put it in there for her. And then personally, I have a few different like high yield savings accounts and an investment account and then a retirement. So, and I have a lot of automations and transfers set up because I recognize that when you have a child, again, time and things just change. I used to monthly sit down with my budgeting tracker on my spreadsheet and like go and input like, okay, these are my expenses. This is where I was. This is what I budgeted. This is how much I spent. I used to do all of that. I don't have time for that. So
Mhm.
what I do now is I just make sure I pay myself and I pay my daughter first through automations that come out at the top of the month. And then I kind of just track on my phone every couple of days occasionally to like make sure I'm not, I have an idea of like my budget buckets and categories. I just make sure I'm like not doing too much. I have the most flexibility in like our grocery and food budget. I over budget for that because usually like we'll be eating at family's house or like I'll have leftovers or something like that. So I really don't spend a lot of money on food for us, but like bills and everything, that's all auto pay and like those discretionary funds, she has her own account for that. But I'm a very thrifty person. I try to keep my costs low, and live well below my means because God forbid anything could happen. And it's just me. Like I have family, but
Right.
I'm not comfortable asking people for like exorbitant amounts of money if something is to happen. So I'm very diligent in that area of making sure like we are doing okay.
Yeah. So that I have that too.
Mm.
That same structure. Have you faced any financial hardships and what lessons did you learn from that?
Not since being a mom, thankfully I haven't. Like I said, I set myself up, I think, pretty well. When I found out I was pregnant, I did choose to move back in with my mom. That was less of a financial decision, but finances did play a role. I mean, I've always worked and had a job, and I could have stayed in my apartment that I had, but it just didn't make sense for me to me to like be alone with a brand new baby because her father and I were not together at the time that I had her, and I decided that wasn't going to be a thing. So I'm like, it doesn't make sense to be across town in this place by myself with a brand new baby, not knowing anything to do. So I moved back home. I was there for um, about 3 years, and then I moved back out recently. So I would say if there's any financial kind of challenge, it would be that I just chose to move back to stack up and save over that time and also just get that help with childcare. That's another thing. I would have been paying a babysitter or paying for
Right.
child. That's just, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to do that.
Yeah. So what advice would you give a single parent trying to save or invest for their child's future? Because you seem to have the necessary things in place.
Mhm. Advice trying to save for your child's future. I would say set a goal for you and your child and the kind of life that you want them to have or that you think that you want to work toward and try to work backwards. So like I know I want my child to go to college. She might choose not to go to college. I mean, you never know. It's a changing and evolving world. I think that's critical for a young Black girl to go and just get at least a 4-year degree. So I'm like, I have to start a college savings fund for her. I didn't have one, but I did end up getting scholarships and I expect that she will too, because that's a standard I'm gonna like establish. But I
Mhm.
need her to have something. I don't want her to go out into the world blind. So I established that college savings fund. I also she has a piggy bank. We went to a yard sale and there was like they gave us a little purple piggy bank. So whenever we find money, anytime we find money, I make it a big deal. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna put this in your piggy bank. Are you so excited? We're gonna go home, we're gonna count it. So making it a fun, teachable moment. Like she's 3, she doesn't know what a penny versus a dime versus, but she knows it's money. And she also knows that it takes money to buy things. So just incorporating um earning and spending in your day to day and like kind of making it a game, making it fun for the kids.
Mhm.
As for yourself as a single parent, I would say if you're employed, look into your employer's retirement investment options and seeing what they will match you on and take advantage of that to the degree that you can. And then also it's just going to take a little bit of personal drive to learn what your options are. I'm 26. I recently turned 26. I've learned everything I've known, most of the stuff I know about like finance and investing in the last like 5 years. Like this wasn't something that I grew up knowing and learning about. So I consume a little bit of financial like content as far as like social media, as far as like podcasts and books, and not all of it out there is good. I would say like start with Dave Ramsey. He's really good. And then look into trading index funds. I know a lot of people like to talk about the stock market, but if you're a single parent and you're working full time and you still want to have another life, a social life and everything, you're not trading stocks every day. It's not realistic. Most people aren't going to do it. So
Mhm.
figuring out a long-term investment strategy on an app like Acorns or Webull or Robinhood or Trading 212 or M1, where you literally just put money in a pot and you can decide how you want to split that pot. You don't think about it. And it's better than just having $10 in your pocket. It's doing something. And I feel like my philosophy, and I'm getting long-winded here, my philosophy is that if you're doing small steps,
Mhm.
that's a small action that's better than no action at all. Like you don't have to be 100,000 or even millionaire to like set yourself up for success. Like you're better off than a lot of people if you just start doing something. And you can learn with your kid too. Like you don't have to know everything.
Yeah. So the important part is you have some great advice is to just start.
Just start, just do
Where you
something.
are. If it's even $1, $5 every week, just start. And then my advice is to look into the tax-free advantages. That's
Mm-hmm.
the Roth IRA. So I
Yeah.
think you have that for your daughter, the custodial account.
The custodial account's like an investment account. I wanted to do a Roth IRA for her, but there was some reason why I couldn't. I couldn't remember, but I have a Roth IRA for me.
Okay.
I intend to at some point get a life insurance policy on myself. I just haven't done that yet. My job has one, so I haven't been like hugely like, toward doing it. But I'm like, you know what? God forbid if something happens, like she needs to get paid. So I want to look into doing that at some point. And I'm young and healthy, so it will be very cheap, like $5 to $10 a month.
Yeah. So I can recommend you to somebody, the person that did
Okay.
mine. So I have an IUL, and it's kind of like a combination of a savings, an index account with life
Mhm.
insurance, and it also comes with living disability. So God
Okay.
forbid something happened to my major organs, I get a check
Mhm.
because I work in healthcare. So
Okay, so you see it all.
yeah, no matter what I go in for, you're gonna get a bill,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty good setup. Okay, who has been your biggest support system? I think I know the answer because you mentioned it. And how have they helped you?
My mom for sure. Love her to death. I find that since I've become a mom, my perspective and vision has shifted so much on like parenthood and parenting and what that was like. She was a single mom for a bit and then she was married. But for the first like 10 years of my life, it was pretty much just us two. And obviously as a kid, I didn't think much about like what is my mom thinking about? What is she feeling? What does she have to go through today? Like now that I'm a single mom and I'm younger than she was when she had me, I'm like, how did she do this? Like, how? And we were always traveling. I was involved in Delta Gyms and Jack and Jill and always in different culturally immersive activities. And I did a lot. Like I got to see a lot as a kid, and that's something I want for my daughter too. But I have such a deeper appreciation for
Mhm.
her and her motherhood because it just day to day. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't even want to get up. And then I have a 3-year-old bouncing on my head in the bed talking about wakey, wakey, I want breakfast. Like that's the type of stuff that I'm like, nobody told me it would be this. So my mom has been
Yeah.
like my biggest support. Like I said, we lived with her back again for a little bit. Honestly, she would have let me live there forever. But I was like, I can't get too complacent. I need to like figure my stuff out. I would like to get my own place. Um, she keeps Kobe all the time. We were over there for Christmas. We evacuated there when there were hurricanes here. I'm in St. Petersburg and I live in a flood zone. So my mom for sure, like without a doubt, for sure.
Right. I heard it earlier on in the conversation. So the question really is, how do you create a village or a community for yourself? But I think you mentioned it. It's just your family and being that you live basically at home where all your family members and your friends are there. But is
Oh,
that
I live in my hometown. If I didn't live in my hometown, I don't want to say it's impossible because people do it every day. I don't know what I would do. I think it would be more of an effort toward building that village and community, but it was definitely baked in because I'm in my hometown now. But my daughter has godparents who were family friends. She has her paternal grandparents, her paternal aunt, and then me, obviously my mom and then my dad. They're not together, but he's around. And then I have friends here who are always like, oh, well, do you want to go to the gym? I'll watch Kobe for you for an hour. And I'm like, I didn't even think of that. So I've been super fortunate to be in my hometown where I already have a community, but I think building that community is a totally different challenge if you're in a new place or new to you place with no one else around. Like that would be hard.
yeah. So when I left Florida, because I was there for like 20 years and I moved
Mhm.
to Atlanta, I had to get a living nanny because it was hard. My work schedule was weird. It was like 10 a.m. to 7.
Oh, wow.
So it was weird. And, I ended up moving to night shift. And then I would get home and take the kids to school. But then I'd be so tired, So getting that living nanny helped me big time. If I didn't have that, I don't know what I would do.
And I think about how my long-term goal, I say long-term, like 2 years, I really would like to leave St. Pete because although all my family is here and I'm so fortunate and everything and I'm grateful, I think for my personal character development, which is still really important to me, like I need to experience another place. Like I've been here my whole life. I can't go the rest of my life and not having seen something else. And so I think about like, what is it going to be like to have a 5-year-old kindergartner living in a new city, a new place all on my own? Granted, I'm gainfully employed, like I have, credentials and skills. I'll have money, I'll have a job, I'll have housing. But I'm like, the day to day. Like I can't just say, hey, can you come over real quick and watch her while I go do XYZ thing? Like that's not what it's going to be. And like
Mhm.
that scares me a little bit. But I also recognize like there are far worse situations to be in and it can be overcome. So I'm excited about it. But again, it's back to that question of like what are the what's my community? What's my support going to be? How am I going to figure this out?
So it would be, you'd have to probably do before and after care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so make sure you budget for that. Um, that's about it because I don't, it's hard for me to trust people. I
Oh
have
my
girls,
gosh.
but it doesn't matter if they were boys. It's I'm just
I wouldn't just leave my kid with anybody, right?
yeah.
Like there's some Facebook groups I'm in just like locally for like moms or just local like buy sell trade or just different interest and hobby groups. And occasionally I will see people saying like I need a babysitter tomorrow. I'll pay this much an hour. Who do you know who's available? And I'm like, that is that is
Not
not
me.
enough time to vet a person or figure out like but people are desperate. Like they're in need. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I almost want to be like, I'll watch them just because I'm like, I know I'm a safe person. Like, I'm scared for this child. You're just going to leave them with a stranger. But, that's not realistic. But I just think about that. Like, I'm in a good spot and like, do I really want to blow this up? But I think I need to like get to where I want to go in life for sure.
Well, it gets better when they get older. Like now
Mhm.
my kids are old enough to watch themselves.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Okay, what resources like books, podcasts, organizations have been most helpful to you?
In terms of just being a mom and everything.
Yeah.
So I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, and there's this organization called the Next Step Pregnancy Center. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, I don't know, I think I knew someone who worked there. And it's typically income based, but it's also like if you sign up, they'll give you services. And so I signed up for one of their programs and you get points. You can earn points to shop in their baby boutique by doing different activities. So applying for jobs or taking a parenting class or a course or a webinar, you get gift cards, different things. So I participated in some of those things and I got like a lot of free stuff for my baby and I can go and shop and I got like diapers and clothes and again I had money but I'm like hey I'm a single mom so
Yeah.
if it's available and no one else is taking advantage I'll definitely utilize it so I got a lot of help from there. Pinellas County and St. Petersburg just have a lot of educational programs and opportunities just through like the libraries and like the parks. So I take advantage of a lot of those just to find like entertainment for us that's like free to cheap and things to do because again she's 3, so she gets excitable pretty easily. Um, it's a lot of stuff where it's like you sign up and they send you like free books or they send you different resources or you can go to the library and get like a fun little arts and crafts. I like to do stuff like that. In terms of podcasts, I think I've listened to a couple of parenting podcasts, but for a long time and some days still, I don't love being a mom. Like I love my daughter and I feel so fortunate, but I don't love being a mom. So when I'm going to podcasts or content like that, I'm typically either trying to escape or learn something new. And so I haven't found parenting content in that way that I find super helpful. There was a time where I was watching some creators on TikTok talking about gentle and conscious parenting. So there's a woman named Destiny, and there's another guy. His name is the Undomitable Black Man, and there's like a Dr. Becky on Instagram. I think some of those people they give really back to discipline, like you mentioned earlier. They provide some good frameworks for instilling discipline in your kid that is not beating them, but it is, setting a boundary and being clear. Like I have popped her a couple of times but I don't want to be beating on and hitting on my kid. That doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve her either. And I'm like, there is another way. And so I do look to them sometimes to get different ideas or frameworks and perspectives about like, how do I go about making clear that this is what I mean and setting this boundary. But because it is only me, there's not like another parent that she can like do good cop, bad cop with. It's challenging because I'm like, I don't want to make her upset, but she also needs to stop doing this thing. So it's just kind of a balancing act in that regard. Oh, I also bought a book called The Montessori Toddler. I'm not fully like bought into the Montessori principles, but like as a concept, but there are some key principles and things that I did find valuable from that. So like letting them do things for themselves or teach them how to do things and be independent. I feel like a lot of people want to like baby kids for forever. I'm like, she can put on her own clothes. Like she can go and get her shoes. She can clean up after herself. Like these are things that, and it's also not a punishment. Like it's something that has to happen. Like we can go do this fun thing, but you sitting here crying about not cleaning up is not gonna, if I clean them up, we're not going. Like it has to happen. So it's little things I've taken away from these specific different resources, but nothing that I'm kind of tapped into consistently for inspiration or learning in that way.
Right. One of the podcasts I can recommend to you because I'm listening to it, and that's how I know I'm on the right path. Is
Mm.
it's called Bigger Pockets Money. So I found,
Oh yeah, they're like a real estate investing
yeah.
people.
So
Familiar
it,
with your
I
pockets.
was really listening to Bigger Pockets, the real estate one, but then they
Mm-hmm.
mentioned Bigger Pockets Money. I was like, okay, let me, because I believe in diversifying.
Mm-hmm.
So they have some really good content there. Um, but one of the things that you said that I'm gonna touch on is you said you like her to do stuff for herself, to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I would challenge you to do is allow her to think for herself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say something happens, just ask her, what do you think about that? And
Mm-hmm.
just wait and let her think and express herself.
Mm-hmm.
Because the truth is, the average person, they don't think.
No critical thinking.
No.
None. Been so many times where like we go similar routes in our life, just driving place to place. So every time we pass somewhere, she tells me, "Oh, mommy, we were just there yesterday," or "We dropped Liliana." That's my sister. "We dropped Liliana off over there," or "That's your doctor's office." And then occasionally it'll be, "What's that over there?" or "What's going on?" And I'll say, "Well, what do you think it is?" Or I'll say, "What do you see?" Or "What color is it?" Or "What are they doing?" Because a lot of times if we're just driving around, I don't know the answer. But I do try to get her to think critically in the sense of like, what's the evidence? Or can you describe this to me? And because of that, I think that has helped improve her vocabulary to the degree that it is. Like she talks like a 6-year-old, which is a blessing and a curse. But seeing things through her eyes and her little mind is really fascinating too. Like understanding how she extrapolates details and information is quite interesting.
She sounds smart.
I have to send you a couple videos of her chatting with me in the car. She's hilarious.
Yeah. Um, so I'm gonna ask you some questions that it took me a very long time to get and to balance.
Okay.
How do you make time for yourself, like self-care, and why is it important for single parents specifically?
Self-care is important because if you can't pour from an empty cup. I can't be a great mother or even decent mother to my kid if I'm on my last string about to like snap and lose my mind. So how I make time for that is, like I mentioned, we have a village. So her godparents will get her for me from school for like one day out the week, and then they'll keep her overnight and take her the next day. And so that day, it's usually a Thursday. So that day, I'm like, I'm doing 15 things, and like usually none of them happen. And I end up either going to the gym, going for a walk, or scheduling a massage, or literally just watching TV and just like trying to be mindless. But I know for the most part, I have one day a week or one evening after work that is my own. Aside from that, it goes back to just asking for help for people to look after her while I do something. But as she is like, she's not getting super older, but I can talk to her now. Like we can do more things together that are fun, like arts and crafts or like making things and stuff like that. I've also tried waking up earlier to get stuff done. And when I wake up earlier, I'm usually more productive and have a better day, but that requires going to bed earlier the night before, which doesn't always happen. Um, but I just schedule it. I have a lot of different options for childcare that I can shuffle and ask before I have to look to other options. But I usually just ask for help for someone to watch her and I schedule it and I'm able to book something. But I've recently got back into reading for leisure. And I think that's also a good habit to build around your child because, you want to teach them the basics of reading and education. And it's really fun because when we read at bedtime, I would move my finger and now she holds up her finger for me to move it when we're reading. Or when I tell her, because I'm in my MBA program, I'll say, okay, I have homework to do, Kobe. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do your homework or do you want to go watch TV or do you want to play? And usually she'll say she wants to do her homework too. And I've printed out some different sheets for her to like trace her letters and color and stuff. So I'll be over here watching a lecture and she'll be doing her homework too. So I find that if I'm either getting the work done, but usually like reading is more, self-care and leisure. She kind of is imitating those similar things and I'm able to get it done more because she's not necessarily needing my direct attention. She just kind of wants my company.
Right. I think you have a really good structure. Sounds like
I
it.
try. I'm trying. I'm trying.
It's not gonna be perfect, okay?
Yeah.
Give yourself grace and mercy. Okay, what strategies do you use to manage stress or burnout as an overthinker?
Stress and burnout. Um, I have friends that I send 15-minute voice memos to, just ranting. And usually that helps. This year specifically, this is something I want to focus more on because there's so much I want to do, but I recognize you can't do more without taking things off of your plate. So a practice I'm working on is just saying no to things. Like when people present me with opportunities or like, a job or a freelance gig to do social media or like a website or something, like not saying yes to everything. Like, yeah, money is nice, but a few $100s or even $1,000, like, or I could spend the weekend doing whatever I want. Like money is not everything. So recognizing that not every opportunity is something that I need to take advantage of. Like I need to renew and restore myself. Um, and then also something else I plan to employ. I didn't call it this, but I just recently learned about this method. It's called the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And she has this new book. I want to read it, but I watched her podcast with Oprah and she was basically talking about how if something's going on, there's another person, you have to recognize that you can't control them or you can't control the outcome. You have to just say, let them. Or so what if they think this, that, or the third about whatever it is you're doing? Let them. And that's not an F them or like a we don't care about them. It's a we're gonna let them so that now I can do what I need to do. And I've employed that. I never called it that, but it was more so like a deep breath, okay, refocus. But it's the let them theory. And that's something that I really want to work on because I get worked up over like things. I take things, I don't take them personally, but if someone has an issue with me or an issue with my work or something, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like what did I do? Like where did I go wrong? Like what was the problem? And it's like if they haven't presented a problem to you, if they start acting funny or if they're shifty or if they're weird, like I don't have the information or the evidence to suggest that the issue is me. And so if it is, they're gonna have to tell me that. But in the meantime, I can use this energy that I'm using to think about and fixate on whatever it is to spend time with my daughter or to do an arts and crafts project or to book our next trip or to do some schoolwork or to read a book or literally anything else under the sun I want to do. I can't focus on everybody else. I have to focus on me and us.
Awesome. Now, how do you seem to have a pretty steady energy, right? But I know sometimes we vibrate low. That's what we say in the spiritual
Oh,
world, or we get downhearted or whatever. But how do you stay motivated and positive on tough days?
I don't. If it's a down day, I just got to take the day. I'm dating someone now. When I talk to him, I'll be like, I was gonna start my day like this, but now that this happened, I need to just be mad about it. And then once I get over it, I'm able to push forward. But I think an error that I made in the past was I would try to get over stuff too fast. I wouldn't allow myself to fully process it. And then I just try to move on. And it's like, well, this is still lingering. This is still here. So I just have to let myself feel my full range of emotions. And I try to give myself a time limit, especially if it's something like menial or trivial. But if I'm having a moment, I just gotta have that moment. And and then when I come out of it, I'm like, okay, we can talk now or we can revisit this now. I am a really emotionally driven person. I know it may not come across that way now, but sometimes things really shake me up and I feel like the whole world is crumbling down. And I know in my mind, back to what I just said about like what is the evidence? I know in my mind that a lot of times things are not as bad or as devastating or dire as it seems, but it can feel like that in the moment. So I just go back to like, okay, why do you think this? What is the reason? And like, what can we do about it? If we can't do anything about it, like, let's just be mad for like another couple hours and then let's go get some ice cream. And then, you know what I mean? Like, I love a sweet treat. So I'll get myself a sweet treat and I'll feel bad about it later, but it makes me feel better in the moment.
Yeah.
Then I'm able to move forward with some type of positivity. Maybe the good answer to that question would be like, oh, I go work out. I go running and I get it out that way. But that is not me at all.
So somebody said something to me. I guess I could say my real estate mentor. He said, don't get too high on your highs and
Mm.
get too low on your lows. And it took
Mhm,
me a while to understand it. So I'm very like laid back.
mhm,
I'm usually like if something happens, because I work in a hospital, I always remain calm.
mhm,
But I had my moments too, and I would take things personal, and it would just throw off my whole day. I can't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think you should give yourself grace and mercy and understand that you're still growing and maturing, and just say that thing. Don't get too high in your highs. Don't get too low in your lows.
I'm gonna put that on my vision board. I'm gonna make a little digital vision board for my lock screen. I'm gonna put that on there. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that helps me a lot. And also listen, tomorrow's not promised. Why am I gonna
Yeah,
stress myself out over something that probably is not gonna matter in 10 years?
yeah. Or even 10 days. 10
Yeah,
days.
yeah. So how do you, as a single parent, how has being single parent shaped your personal growth?
Oh, that's a big one. How has being a single parent shaped my personal growth? I feel like I've proven to myself that I can do a lot, or that, like, for a while, let me go back a little bit. When I found out I was pregnant, and then when it became clear to me that my child's father and I were not going to be in a relationship long term, I was so down on myself. I was like, I'm a statistic. I know better than this. I'm educated. Like why did this happen? Like, why did you choose this? Do 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 do. And like now I'm like, okay, well, it's a lot of people who were with somebody, had a kid and broke up, or got married and had a kid and broke up, or God forbid, but like, were married and had a child and then the other person passed away. Like there's a lot of ways through which people become single parents. I don't think people go into it most of the time knowing that they're gonna do it on their own. And thankfully I'm not entirely on my own, but in terms of like partnership, right? Um, so now that it's been 3 years and some change, and I'm like, oh, I'm still alive. Like my child is thriving. She has friends. She's in school. People love her. They want to be around her. She's excited about things. She tells me she loves me all the time. Like we have a home. I have a job. I'm rich in life. Like I have everything. I think everything I need and a good chunk of what I want. Like really wild that I thought 3 years ago that I was just, the scum of the earth for being a single mom. Like really wild that I thought that. So I think just realizing that like having a child isn't a roadblock or a barrier. It can be a motivator, but it's also just like a life circumstance. Like everybody was a child once. People have kids. Like this world is just not built to support us, but it's not a foreign concept to be a single parent.
Mhm.
Um, I think also for my personal growth, it's really encouraged me and reminded me like what happens in your life is up to you. And sometimes that's terrifying, but sometimes it's really empowering because it's like, I can't wait to tell her like all that has happened. Like she's not gonna know. I can't wait to tell her, like, oh my gosh, when you were one, this happened. And then when you were three, you had this great birthday party and you talked about it all the time. And you were singing in the church choir. And now look, like this is gonna be so much fun. I just think about all the personal development that I still have left to do and all the things I want to do in my life and how I get to bring her along with me. And I feel like I have a little, not sidekick, but like a fun little buddy. Because everything she thinks everything I do is so cool. She thinks I'm like the coolest person ever. And I think that's also part of it is like realizing that your child is not think about all the stuff you think about. They just think you're so cool and they want to be around you and they want to know what you're doing and they just want to tell everybody about it.
Yeah, they want to be like you. Okay,
Literally. Literally.
what goal, or easier question, what's next for heaven?
What's next for heaven is my MBA classes start back on Sunday and I'm gonna get back to the school grind. So it's like the first week of January that we're recording this, and the last few weeks I've been out of school and then work has been kind of here and there because people have been traveling. So it's been kind of like an in-between time. So I've been really like leisurely and restful, and I went on a trip for my birthday. So I've been feeling very like mellow, relaxed, I'm chilling. So I feel like real life starts back next week when school starts. And then from there, I am reinvigorating my YouTube channel. I want to start posting there more consistently, just talking about my journey as an MBA student, but also as a mom, and then also like just trying to figure my stuff out. For a while, I was like, I got to figure out what's my topic going to be. And I'm like, the topic is my story. Like, if I felt this way about being a single mom 3 years ago, certainly there's somebody who feels that way or similar now who's like, I need somebody to like talk to, or I need to hear somebody else expressing these similar things. So I'm like, I feel like I have something to offer in that realm. So school and then my YouTube stuff. And then of course just the typical day to day of mothering this little girl.
Okay. I'm an energy person. I think like searching for topics, like even with my podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how am I going to structure somebody said to me, are you going to have enough topics to talk about? I'm like,
Gosh, of course.
yeah. I'm like, I believe in abundance. Like right now, I'm like, I don't know where to start.
I mean, each of these questions we just talked about, we could have done an hour-long podcast on. I
Yeah.
mean, we could have, yeah, for sure. There's plenty of things. And I think too, I think just, well, really, as Black women, there's not enough of us doing anything.
Yeah.
So you could really do anything and just be that representation that somebody else needs because there's no shortage of stuff to do and talk about, but there's not enough of us sharing our stories as we're doing it.
Okay, so what's one thing you wish you could tell yourself when you first became a single mom?
It's gonna be all right. You'll figure You will figure it out. I doubt myself a lot still to this day. I would just tell myself, you will figure it out, or it will get figured out. It is fine. Like, relax. Relax is really probably what I would say.
Okay. How about this topic? Something I'm trying to be intentional about this year.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts about dating as a single parent?
that's a good one. It's I like I said before, I thought I was like, no one's gonna want me. I'm a statistic. That was something that was heavy on my mind because I was 22 when I had my daughter. Now that I'm 26, I feel like everybody around me is getting engaged and stuff. And I'm like, we're just kids. What are you talking about? But like, I'm a mom, so obviously we're not kids. Dating was really important to me when I had her because I'm like, okay, I'm so young. Like, I can't be alone the rest of my life. Like, no one's gonna want me. I have this child. Like, what's gonna happen? Like, that is so not the case. I feel like for one, depending on how you become a single parent, whether it's when the child is young or if you lost a partner or if there was a breakup, you got to have some time to just figure out who you are and who you're going to be in this role as this person's parent. I think people jump from relationship to situation to relationship, or a lot of times moving with somebody for housing. That's not going to serve you or your kid. You got to figure out who you are first and then figure out what you want in a dating situation or a partner. Do you want to just casually date and figure out like what's out there? Like, what's the dating pool like? What are people like? I recommend that personally. I feel like a lot of people go straight to like, I want to find my life partner. If you haven't had a lot of dating experience, I think it's critical to like go on a few dates, proper dates, and see like, okay, how do they feel about children? Are they safe around children? How are they with family? Are they prepared or are they willing and ready to like be in a child's life? And if they're not, like, those are things I feel like you need to just suss out immediately because there's no point in like even carrying on and wasting time if that's not something. And then do you have shared values and goals and all that stuff? But I would just recommend getting very specific on who you are and getting very specific on what you want in a partner or in a relationship or whatever it is you're looking for. Because I recognize that people date for different reasons.
Mhm.
But I would say the big boxes that they need to check, rule those out first. I
Mhm.
don't really see the point in like, oh my God, so like, how was your day? Like, yeah, how was your day? But like, what do you think about this thing? Or like, I just heard this interesting story. Like, what is your take on that? And like, let it be a subject that is very indicative of values. Cause like, I don't want to spend time with someone who I don't have values alignment with. I don't really see like the point in that. And that's not like any slight to them, but I'm not about forcing people to be in my life or being in someone else's life. I recognize that there are 8 billion people in this world in abundance. Like, there's going to be somebody out there for you. We
Mhm.
don't need to like go back and forth and like text and whatever. Like I'm not with the texting all day stuff. Like I don't have the time. There's no point in like trying to facilitate or foster something that the other person is just they're not aligned. And then I also thought about when I was dating this person I've been with, it's been over a year now. So he's like met Kobe, he's been in her life, like we're in a good spot. But I was like, when is he gonna meet her? Like, how is that gonna work? All of that. And he ended up meeting her pretty early, but I think I resolved that she's so young now that she won't remember if things don't pan out. Now, if your child is older,
Mhm.
I I don't have experience with that, and that would be a tough thing to like kind of sort through. I'm not sure what your experience is, but you said your kids are a little bit older. Like, what's that been like for you in terms of like meeting people?
Um, I never really, because I got divorced 8 years ago. So I
Mm-hmm.
dated probably 3 times in the 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
The first one never met my kids. The second one, after seeing red flags, I was like, nah.
Yeah.
I actually was forced to introduce them, but it was as friends.
Friends, yeah.
And the third one, we had a relationship for 3 years, but we're great at friends, but not relationship wise. But
Mm-hmm.
that one was more like he's like my really, really good friend. Anything I need, I call him. So it so happened just not too long after we met, you know, I needed some stuff done at the house, and he's good at that, like Mr. Fix.
Yeah.
So that
That's
was
good.
how, he met my kids. And then he kept asking me out, like, let's go to the park, to Stone Mountain. And,
Mhm.
I was like, I would make these excuses. And I was like, he's like, I understand you have your kids. He's like, just take the kids. So that's how they met, and they get along very well. I mean,
I think
even
that's good. Very like a casual, low stakes environment, not like
yeah,
a we're going to dinner at this nice restaurant. Like, no,
yeah,
something fun, something light,
yeah,
where you guys don't all have to be in the same place. Like the kids can run around or go do their own exploring, type of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like everything, when that's just my belief, naturally happen.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we're not in a relationship, even this Christmas, he gave them gifts.
That was very sweet.
So they still do have a good, relationship together. And that to me is more important than the actual relationship.
Yeah, I think kids need more safe, positive adults in their lives that aren't necessarily like family. Like sometimes you just need somebody who's just like, oh wow, like that was my mom's friend so and so. Like they were really great to me. Like there's people like that in my life that I'm like, huh, it's really nice that I had them to go to or had them to turn to if I needed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one
Oh,
conception about single parents that you'd like to debunk?
um, I would say like a misconception that I even had myself was that like you're a statistic or you earn this or deserve this or that there's something wrong with XYZ person. And typically when I hear those kinds of things, it's talking about single mothers, but there are single fathers out there too.
Mhm.
Um, I would like to debunk that being a single parent is a negative thing in any way, shape, or fashion. I think it's just a life circumstance. The same way that like I'm right-handed and you're left-handed, like that's just a fact of life. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes some things are going to be more challenging because, I'm right-handed or because you're left-handed. Something is going to be different, but like we're in 2025. I almost said 2024. We're in 2025 now. Like the world is changing. Like it's so many different ways to be a family. People create and grow their families in different types of ways. Like it's just kind of a tired argument and thought that being a single parent is a problem or issue. It has its challenges, but a lot
Yeah,
of things have their challenges.
yeah,
People with two parents households still have some single parents, if we're being honest. So it's like just reshaping the lens through which we look at the experience of people who just happen to be parenting solo.
yeah. What advice would you give someone who's recently becoming a single parent?
Find your community and lean on them.
Perfect.
Find trusted people for you and safe people for your child to be around that you can tap or call on when you need. Don't try to do this alone. Don't try to be by yourself. Don't try to figure it all out. That's not sustainable. It's a recipe for burnout and overwhelm.
And what hope do you have for your daughter to learn from your journey as a single mom?
Did you say quote or hope?
Hope.
I I want Kobe to know that people might put limitations on her, but the only thing that matters is what she thinks about herself
Mhm.
and what she believes she can do. I feel like anytime I believed I could do something or like did it for fun, things happened for me the way they were supposed to, and I enjoyed the journey. I think the journey is more important. So I want her to feel um fearless to do whatever literally if she wants to freaking live in a van and drive across the country for the rest of her days, like I want her to feel like she can do that because it's her life and it's her time, not because this one identity characteristic that she has inhibits that. Like who cares about that? Like
Mhm.
do live your life your way. I hope to set her up for success and give her choices and options. I never want to be in a place where she doesn't have choices or can't pick to do something else, but I want her to pick whatever makes her happy, as long as it's not hurting or bothering anybody else.
And what legacy or impact do you want to leave for your daughter?
Legacy or impact? I haven't thought about my legacy. I just want her to know that her mom was like a fun girl, a fun girl who cosplayed as an ambitious girl just because I know that I want more out of my life, but
Mhm.
somebody who had fun and loved telling stories. I'm very big on like doing things like, oh, I can't wait to tell Kobe that this happened one day, or like doing it for the plot.
Yeah,
I like
that's nice. All right. I have two more questions.
that. Okay.
I'm doing this at the end of every interview. The first one is, if I was a genie and I ask you, where would you want to be? Anywhere in the world, where would you want to be right now?
Right now, where would I want to be? It's January. It's cold. Well, I'll say this just because I feel like it just happened and I saw a lot of people there. I'd love to be in Ghana in
Mhm.
Accra, maybe on the beach somewhere close to the beach. I love water, tropical, well, it's not the tropics, but ocean, that's my vibe. But Ghana in December is usually pretty fun. I suspect there's still some partying going on there. I think that'd be fun. I'll bring Kobe too. She could come.
Awesome. I've never been there. I would love to go there one day, but it's awesome.
We should make that our first single parent nation retreat. So maybe in a couple years we scale this up, we get all the guests, we all meet in Ghana.
Yeah, so my goal this year is to start my single parent charity foundation. And
Okay,
long term with this podcast, I want to do retreats, like annual
nice.
retreats and also annual conferences. So
I
I
love it.
actually have a board in front of me. I'm like, where would I really want to do these retreats? So
Mhm.
definitely Jamaica.
Okay, I'll go to Jamaica. My friend is there right now. I told her, I was like,
Yeah,
next time you go, you need to take me. Because
but
her mom has a husband there, and so she splits her time. She's a travel nurse, so she's there all the time.
yeah, but Africa definitely. Okay, last question.
I'm ready.
Ask you a million questions, right? I'm giving you the opportunity to ask me just one question.
Okay. Of all the things that you could have done a podcast about, why do you think single parent nation, or this the topic of single parenthood, why do you think that's what people need to hear right now?
I think I was listening to one of the podcasts I listened to is Ed Milet. And at the time, I was thinking about, because I've ventured into different things,
Mm-hmm.
didn't work out. And then I also realized I wasn't really passionate about it. And so he said in that specific podcast, what are you qualified for? And what drives you? What are you excited about?
Mm,
I know when I became a single mom, it was hard. It was hard and it took me years. I mean, parenting alone is hard, but single
mm-hmm.
parenting, it's a different hard. And so, I was like, you know what, I'm qualified to be talking about a single parent. And I thought, with the life that I am designing, I'm like, I could do this podcast anywhere in the world because I
Yeah,
want
you
to travel the
can.
world. So I'm like, I think this fits in because my daughter, I was more into my charity foundation for single parent, but then my daughter gave me that idea. She's like, why don't you just do a podcast? So
Yeah.
I was trying to be decisive on it, but then that one podcast I listened to from Ed Milet, I was like, damn, I am qualified to talk about single.
And also, it doesn't cost anything to do a
Yeah,
podcast. You
yeah,
can call people, talk to them, and then you put it out into the world. And then a week, a month, a year from now, it can blow up, or people can start hearing it and seeing it, and it exists for people to go back to.
yeah. And then, I do a lot of personal development. And the one thing I can say is things won't change if you don't change. If you keep having that one mindset that is not even matured or evolving with the world, you know. So I invest a lot in personal development. So that's some of the things that I'm going to be sharing on the podcast, which I think people need to know and need to hear. And one thing that somebody had said to me when I posted my first podcast last week was,
Mhm.
oh, this is a sensitive topic. You know,
Hmm.
he's like, why did you choose this topic? I said, well, we need to talk about it.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So I'm like, we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to be the grown woman that talks about it. How
And
about
it
that?
might be sensitive, but there's millions of people living this life in reality who, in
Yeah.
many, which don't have anybody to talk to, don't have that community that we talked about. So yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, a friend of mine, a coworker of mine, she says, she's like 42. She's like, I'm too old to go back to school. So she's
Mhm.
very indecisive of that. I'm like, this is the perfect time because your kids are older. They're like teenage. One just left, went to college. I'm like, this is perfect time. So
Perfect time.
yeah, so like we talk about in the beginning, like we're gonna get stuff done anyway. No matter if the child is sick, we have to reschedule, we're gonna
Mhm.
get stuff done. And like a lot of people, they're just indecisive. So when they see women like us doing it, like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too.
And some people I think too need a roadmap. Like I'm that way. Like I look at people who are successful, I'm like, well, you're successful now. Like I don't know what you did before. Like I wasn't tuned in for that. So I like to kind of do like deep dives and dig in. And I think taking people on the journey with you as you're building this is really incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Heaven. Thank you so much for joining us. You did share a lot of nuggets, and I hope people are taking notes.
I'm so
So
glad.
much for joining the Single Parent Nation podcast. Let's keep in touch and send me those videos.
I will. I'm gonna send them as soon as we get off here.
All right, you have a good one. Thank you.
Bye.